Welcome to Damaging Ignorance. Damaging ignorance is important because whoever controls your language of discourse controls your reality. Every story has two sides to it. On this show, we challenge the dominant discourse of the week. We challenge the dominant discourse not because our side is right, but because the other side is wrong. We offer you the actual position of things, and we are rarely wrong. And even when we are wrong, it is because we do not choose to be right. But first, a tribute to His Excellency the Honorable Emilio Mwai Kibaki, CGH, who passed on 2 days ago. Here's what I would like to say about Mzee. It is said that the cards you hold in the game of life mean very little. It's the way you play them that counts. Mzee Kibaki was right at the top when it came to mastering the art of timing in politics.
Mzee Kibaki had many cards that he played, but one card that has not been celebrated is a card of his being a leader in the intellectual realm in Kenya.
Yes.
Not celebrated at all. The one man who has attempted to do that celebration is one of his students by the name of Professor Gowe Wadhiongo.
Yes.
I think it was either in his book Detained or Writers in Politics, one of the two books. I read it when I was 19. Gowe Wadhiongo speaks of this young man who taught him economics at Makerere.
Yes.
And he couldn't understand what he was teaching them, talking about marginal curves and average curves and all that stuff. Aggregate demand, imaginary construction, and all those things. And Gowe could not completely get what this man was saying. So that's why he decided in 1962 to quit the economics class and go study literature in Makerere University. One of the things he took from Mwai Kibaki was that this man, brilliant as he was, speaking impeccable Queen's English as he did. Whenever he talked about Parliament, he used to call it Parliament. He had political party. That was Mzee Kibaki for you. Gowe could not understand how this man does not have an English name. Yet Gowe himself had published a book, I believe it is Weep Not Child or The River Between, or both of them. He had published them under the name of James Ngoge. James Ngoge Thiongo.
Yes.
But this man he has met, he's a lecturer, he's professor at Makerere, did not have a Mzungu name.
Yes.
So when he made his inquiries, he was told that the man used to be called Emilio Stanley, but he dropped these names.
Yes.
So Gowe was inspired by Mzee Kibaki.
Yeah.
He went ahead and changed his name. He said, I will no longer be known as James
Yes.
Ngoge Thiongo. I'll be called
Goge
Wadhiongo. When I read that when I was 19, my name was Godfrey James. And by the way, I had been beaten up seriously by my primary school teachers for wanting to use my native name. They said you must use an English name, the one you were baptized with. So I was Godfrey James, but when I read Gowe Wadhiongo's story, I decided to drop Godfrey James. I became Mutai Ngunyi. But another intellectual thing about Mwai Kibaki, one day I convinced a friend of mine by the name of Willie Mutunga, Dr. Willie Mutunga, the former Chief Justice, that he needed to do a memoir regarding constitution making in Kenya.
Right.
And I said we will look for funds to publish this memoir, and an organization I ran, and Willie Mutunga was more than happy to do the memoir. Once he finished doing it, and it was a book that I published, it was known as a constitution making from the middle. That is constitution making as bourgeois politics. We decided to invite the wife, we were very ambitious, the wife of Nelson Mandela from South Africa.
Graça Machel.
Graça Machel.
Yes.
And Graça Machel, we called her from the co-publisher, a group in Zimbabwe known as Mwengo.
Yes.
Yeah.
We called her, and she said, sure, I'll come and launch the book. But do remember that around this time, 1999, the year it was, Arap Moi and Mandela did not like each other.
Right.
And it is because Mandela believed that Arap Moi was not treating the freedom fighters the way they should have been treated.
Right.
The wife of Kemadi, remember when Mandela came here,
Yes,
he insisted
I recall. Yes.
on going to see the wife of Kemadi.
That's
So
right.
one day Mandela stopped his aircraft here in Nairobi, and he was supposed to come out and go say hello to Mzee Moi, but he refused. He got stuck on the plane. He said he was asleep.
Yes.
So we don't know. Diplomatic row between Kenya and South Africa. Because of that, Graça Machel called us the last minute and told us, people, sorry, I cannot show up to launch this book of my dear friend,
Madiba is asleep.
Dr. Willie Mutunga. She was First Lady. So she said, but conversely, I will send a friend of mine, Dr. Eda Gashokia, to come and represent me in this place for the launch. But I told Willie and my colleagues that, let us get someone with gravitas.
Yes.
Why don't we go look for Mwai Kibaki? And Mwai Kibaki then was the leader of opposition.
Yes.
So we went to Parliament.
Yes.
To Parliament,
Yes.
and we met this gracious, he was not old and gracious man, and he said, absolutely, I'll be more than happy to come and launch this book.
Yes.
And so he came for our launch.
Yes.
Now during our launch, that's where his intellectualness showed, because Willie Mutunga says that the whole of his book, I only want to speak of one little thing, one chapter. It is a chapter on Kamukunji. So Willie, I thought, gave a brilliant rendition on how Kamukunji has been the place of political resistance in our history.
Yeah.
After he had done his rendition, Mzee Kibaki stood up and said, okay, I want to de-educate you and then re-educate you on Kamukunji. And he posed a question to the launch people present. That was at the Grand Regency Hotel. And he asked us, does any one of you know why that place was called Kamukunji? We all said, if Raila was present, Orengo was present, all of us, the opposition and all, everybody who was doing activism then. Then he said, let me give you a story. He says that Kamukunji is named after a particular fellow who was the leader of the people who used to collect the sewage in Nairobi. Let me explain. In the 1930s, 40s, even partly 50s, Nairobi did not have a sewer system. So what would happen is that every toilet in Nairobi had a bucket. It was pushed into your toilet, and you do your stuff, and then it's also called the Indian. It was an Indian system. You do your stuff, and then every morning there will be a group of people who will come to collect the stuff and throw it into a particular truck. And then clean up the buckets and then return them. Now the leader of all this, the entire this cohort, lived in a beautifully appointed house on atop a hill in a place called Sharimoyo. And he used to dress up impeccably in white. And white kaptula shorts. And every time there will be a problem with these workers, they congregated at his place. And they would agitate for better conditions in collection of this your waste across Nairobi. Kibaki telling us his story. And The name of that man was Mukonji. So the spot where they used to congregate atop a hill in Sharimoyo was known as Kamukoji,
Yes.
the place of Mukunji. And in de-educating all of us, he was telling us that agitation for political independence and our liberation started there. So the history of Kamukunji has the background of a man called Mukunji, who has not been recorded in our history books yet. And that's where the agitation began. So he was telling Willie, Mutunga, if you had spoken to me, I would have given you this story and you would have put it in your book to see how the significance of this particular place. And Mwai Kibaki was not only a historian, Mzee Kibaki, he was an intellectual in his own right. In fact, in 1974, the Time magazine named him as one amongst 100 people in the world, globally, likely to lead a phenomenal change across the world, globally. He was a young man of about 40-something when he was named. So even the world recognized him. And this is why, as a Fort School government, we celebrate the late Mwai Kibaki, not just as a leader, but also as an intellectual giant in many ways.
Yeah, absolutely. So now, on to the three things that Mzee Kibaki would have damaged ignorance on if he was alive. 1. Mzee Kibaki would have disagreed with us when we say that Kikuyus are being Kalenjinized. He would have told us that Kikuyus are being de-Kikuyunized.
That would be a typical Mwai Kibaki
kind of thing to say.
Kind of thing. Clarification. Because he was intellectually very intimidating. But on this, I would agree with him that actually Kikuyus have been, first and foremost, de-Kikuyunized. And that is why it is easier for William Ruto to Kalenjinize them. And de-Kikuyunization has something to do with making the Kikuyus, the Gema nation, hate itself. There is no community in this country that is apologetic about being who they are as the Kikuyus, the Gema nation. Completely apologetic. And this is a project that Arap Moi actually began. He says the only way to deal with a majority like this that is also rich is to basically make them doubt themselves, make them hate themselves, and make them, feel shy about who they are. And that's why to date, when you have a Mwiko guy in Rwaka who has a hardware shop, the shop does fantastic. He goes, he buys himself a Plado. He call it Plado. And then he puts tint on the Plado and fat tires.
And metal bars.
Metal bars. What happens is that once he does that, when he goes to see his friends are like, whoa, man, you really have gone up. The Mwiko will say, kujaribu tu. He's apologizing. No, I'm just kujaribu tu. If you're given that car, or half of that car to Omolo, he'll tell you, I have graduated from transportation to a German machine. To mobility. It's because the Luo nation has been made to love itself.
Absolutely.
That's right.
But the German nation has been made to be apologetic about who they are. And one thing on that, have you noticed how Kikuyus construct their houses?
Oh my goodness.
Madhogodhani completely.
Kikuyu
Gothic completely. Small windows out there, and the designs have been drawn behind a matchbox in a bar. And all the buildings. In Rwaka, for instance, and Mathare North as well. For a long time, the buildings were very badly done. It is not that they're incapable of giving you beautiful buildings, because they can do that.
Yeah.
But they have to be apologetic about themselves by giving you a facade that is not attractive. I get it. I get what I mean. So that Gemawodi thing you're talking about, it's not by accident.
Yes.
It is because they have been conditioned
Yes. Not to love themselves.
to hate themselves.
Yes.
And as a result of that, if you have gotten to that place where you cannot appreciate yourself sufficiently,
Yes.
a guy called William Ruto will come and say, clean slate.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have dekikuyunized you.
Yeah.
Mzee KIBAKI will be right.
Yeah.
We have emptied your Kikuyuness and your culture.
Yeah.
Now,
Now we need to load.
Now
We load.
Yes.
Something else.
Kalenjinization.
Kalenjinization.
And that's why in the UDA nominations,
Yes.
all the returning officers in Ngema counties were Kalenjins. Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the point here is that, and I would agree with that, the Ngema has been
Yeah.
dekikuyunized
Yeah.
systematically from the year of our Lord, January 5, 1967, when Arab Moi
Yes.
took over power.
Yeah.
He said the only way to deal with these people is to
Yes.
take away their identity. And the colonizers did
Did the
that.
same. I was going to ask you the same thing. It's a recolonization project. The Muzungu comes with the Bible, and the Kikuyus forget that the Mwenenyaga, who used to sit on top of Kirenyaga, was their god, and now they have a different god. And as Jomo said, by the time the Muzungu gave us the Bible, told us to pray, we had the Bible and they had the land.
The land.
But the more elegant part of the colonial project
Right.
was that they came, Muzungus came, and they told you Africans, your names sound very Madawadanio, sound very bad.
Yes.
So you man called Goi Wadhiongo, from now on your name will be
James.
James.
Yes.
Jomo Kenyatta, they had wanted him to be called,
Johnston.
to be called John or something like that. He said that would be, Johnson or something.
Johnston. Yeah.
He says, no, from the Otto, it's called a mission church. And every African has a name that does not belong to them. And then they told us, you're called Jonathan. You're called Kelvin.
Kevin.
You see, you're even correcting it. Kelvin. But when you asked, who is Kelvin? You don't know. Where is the source of it? At least yours is from the Bible.
Mine is from some temperatures. So you go the higher it goes.
So when you are asked your name, you'll be asked, what is your English name or baptismal name, and what is your tribal name?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
You go to Tanzania now,
Yeah.
they'll say, you want my tribal name or you want my English name? Now, when you are given a new name, even in the Holy Scriptures, you do remember when Jacob wrestled with God,
Yes.
God told him, I have to change your name. He called him Israel. When your name is changed, your identity also goes.
Goes precisely.
Absolutely.
That's exactly what happened to us when we were being colonized.
Yeah.
And who knows? Very soon it will be more fashionable to call yourself Arab Jomo.
Okay, Pungunya.
Actually, mine is very easy because I can say, once I have become Kalenjinized, I can say my name is Mutaya Ramgun. And it flows, And it will be a crime for me to say Mutaya Nguni. It's Mutaya Ramgun.
Arab Gudi, and you can call me Toro.
And your name is, but this is Arab. This thing is serious. I remember somewhere in 1970s, my entire family,
Yeah.
my brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
We were kicked out of school,
Oh man.
Dr. Kraft Primary School here in Nairobi. It is because my sister,
Yeah.
Shiro, had refused to be called Esther.
Oh.
She was very stubborn. She
Yeah.
said, my name is Shiro.
Jiro.
Jiro.
Absolutely.
The headmaster,
Yeah.
then there was an Indian, said, no, you have to use your English name.
Right.
Then when all of us were called, me, I was Godfrey James, Peter James, Esther James, Joyce James, Jane James, and then my sister is saying her name is Wanjiro.
I love it.
We were all sent home. My father had to come and negotiate with us.
no.
This thing was forced upon us,
Yeah.
and once you colonize the mind in that way,
And
you'll
the guys
also-
who are doing this are black teachers, right?
black teachers. See, that's the way they were taught,
Conditioned.
were conditioned. So you Kikuyus, Mzee Kibaki would say you have been dekikuyunized,
Yeah.
but the time for you to be Kalenjinized
Yeah.
is probably around now.
Now.
You've been made to be apologetic about who you are,
About your identity.
about your identity.
Mm.
Everything you do ni kujaribu tu. Yeah?
The second principality of ignorance that Mzee Kibaki would have damaged is that Kikuyus have been forgiven for their 100-year dominance. In Latin, this is known as libido dominandi, meaning the urge to dominate, the insatiable lust for power. 2022 will be a colonial opportunity for William Ruto to fix the Kikuyu problem once and for all. We will have a return of 41 versus 1, and maybe Raila may be seduced by that possibility as well.
I think that both of them might be seduced by that possibility. Currently, Baba the Fifth is our friend,
Yes.
but we have gone to him purely on account of goodwill.
Yeah.
Uhuru has done you well,
Yeah.
you must also return the favor.
In favor.
Yeah.
But you don't negotiate politically based on goodwill only.
Yeah.
You do goodwill
Yes.
and the sword.
Right.
Yep.
In this particular case, the sword are numbers.
Yeah.
That's right.
So if the numbers are not going to be with Uhuru, then Baba the Fifth might enter that place,
Yeah.
and then he might decide to change his mind, and you will not.
You do nothing about
You
it.
do nothing about it, and that's why it's very important that Gema is with Uhuru Kenyatta.
Yes.
He'll go there and change his mind. And in any case, the Bible has taught us that only a fool does not change his mind.
yeah.
And if you have a mind that you're using and it is working, you should change it occasionally when the facts change.
Change. Absolutely.
When facts change, you change your mind. He might do that, although I trust him more than I trust William Ruto. But my biggest problem right now is the nomination of a deputy president.
Yeah.
Right.
We have deadlines.
Yeah.
What if we get to that deadline and the deadlines are legal,
Yes.
some of them constitutional?
Correct.
What if we get to that deadline and bang, we hit the deadline?
Yeah.
Raila says it's Kalonzo,
Yes.
and
Ruto
Ruto
says
says
Musalia.
it's
Musalia.
Mudavadi. Where will the Kikuyus go to?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Completely lost. And we must have that in our minds as a probable situation.
Absolutely.
If that happens, then we will know that the 41 versus 1
Yes.
Yes.
It's loading.
has loaded.
Has loaded.
It's loaded.
Because during the election, you have either to choose Raila with Alonso
Yes.
or choose
Ruto or Musalia. With Musalia.
Ruto with Musalia,
Yeah.
unless a Kikuyu runs, a Karibo Kikuyu runs as an independent.
As an independent.
Fair
candidate.
enough.
Yeah.
Then the 5.6 may decide to go that way. But in the meantime, that scenario of reaching that mukaro, that
Yes.
edge,
Yes.
where you have to give us your running mate, and then you have running mate surprises, and none of them is from Gema.
Yeah.
That scenario is very probable. And that's the only way to deal with the libido dominandi. disease that Gema
Yes.
suffers from. And if that happens, you can be sure that Gema will be out of power in the next 100 years. On this question of a Kikuyu running mate, I want to add an extra point.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that's part of a scheme they're executing.
Right.
That I don't think the idea of forming a committee to select a running mate, I don't know the value proposition of that, in my view. And if that committee will ask for opinions,
Yes.
I'll give you an opinion.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll give you an opinion because I have one.
Yeah.
And I'm sure my opinion is the one that will prevail.
Yeah.
The candidate for deputy president is none other than Mother Wangari Karua. And I'm saying that because the person who shall be running it must be deemed to be capable enough
Yes.
to become president,
Yes.
or to run the office of president in the event the
Yeah.
president
Yeah.
is incapable of
Yeah.
running
Yeah.
that particular office.
That's the ultimate criteria for selecting.
That is the constitutional logic
Yes.
Yeah.
behind this.
Absolutely.
So a man called Didi Nyoro,
Oh my goodness.
who doesn't have children yet, he's still a young man, is completely incapable of running country.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Oh yes.
So he cannot be deputy president.
Yeah. The only thing he can run is his mouth.
Mouth he can run, and I think he's very good at doing it. Mother Karua becomes a very good choice. And for a long time I have attacked her repeatedly. But when I saw the light in June last year, I said this is the one.
Yeah. You said it fast.
She will be the one. But in the meantime, the other person qualified to run that office
Yes.
is Kalonzo Musyoka. But Kalonzo Musyoka is being invited by the right side of history
Yes.
Yeah.
to become the king in waiting the way Baba was
Yes.
during the handshake years.
Absolutely.
Baba was given absolutely nothing.
No power.
No.
No position.
President has told us that he asked nothing from me,
Yeah.
and I gave him nothing,
Correct.
no half of government.
Yeah.
And the only thing he was promised, I believe, informally, was that you shall be the king in waiting.
Yeah.
And as a king in waiting, he was given all the accolades,
Yes.
all
And all
the
the packs.
packs of power. Whenever he visited a country, he was received by our ambassador.
Yeah, absolutely.
At the tarmac, he basically was like a and
Yes.
has been like a co-president in many
Absolutely.
ways.
Absolutely.
Kalonzo is being invited by the right side of history, therefore, to occupy that position
Absolutely.
of the king in waiting.
Yes.
So that after 5 years, it becomes obvious,
Yes.
just like it became obvious
Yes.
regarding Raila.
Yes.
He's sacrificed.
Absolutely.
After 5 years, Kalonzo will become the sixth.
Yes.
So if that logic does make sense, then the only person who is left for that position
Yes.
is Mother Karua. So this committee should not waste a lot of time
Yes.
debating these matters.
Yes. Absolutely.
Just take my counsel and we finish up this story. Unless they want to say we want to look like we are making consensus,
Right.
which is also a good thing, but I sound like I've been paid by Mother Karua.
Now, on to the third principality of ignorance that Mzee Kibaki would have damaged. And it is this, that Raila is the continuity candidate. No, Raila is the change candidate, not the continuity candidate.
Let me begin by saying, going back to Mzee Kibaki,
Yes.
Right.
and the story of Goi wa Thiong'o. Kibaki is a young professor, a young lecturer at Makerere University. One day he received a call from a mzee called Jaramogi.
Yeah.
Jaramogi had gone all the way to Makerere to look for. He had been told of the brilliance of this
Yes.
young man, and he went and convinced Kibaki to quit his job as assistant lecturer in economics,
Yeah.
Faculty of Arts in Makerere, and to come back to Nairobi and be the executive officer for the party they had formed with Jomo,
Yeah.
known as the Kenya African National Union, KANU. And Kibaki looked at it, he said, well, I'll hedge my bets.
Mm.
He resigned from Makerere University, that was the end of his lecturing,
Yeah.
and he came into Nairobi to become executive officer for KANU.
Yeah.
His son told us the other day that when Kibaki came, Jaramogi paid for his rent
Absolutely.
from his own pocket.
Yes. Got him a car.
He bought him a Volkswagen,
Yes.
and he also paid his salary
Yes.
throughout
Yeah.
until KANU had sufficient funds
Yes.
to run itself.
Yeah.
Now, son of Jaramogi,
Yeah.
Mm.
the question is, before Mzee Kibaki died,
Yeah.
if we were to have asked him,
Yeah.
tell him now we're going into a very tricky election.
Mm.
That looks like it was going to be like the difficult election we went through in 2007.
Yeah.
Whom should we support? This is what he would have told us. He would have told us to listen to the person that has been closest to me before I died. That person is his son, Jimmy Wanjege, whom we will be electing as the senator for Nyeri, because we do not want the Kibaki.
Jimmy Kibaki.
I said who?
Wanjigi.
That one jiggy guy.
Oh, okay, not
Jimmy's running for president.
Jimmy Wanjege is a nice guy. I like him.
Yeah.
Not Jimmy Wanjege. Sorry.
Well, he's also part of the Kibaki. I mean, his father was part of the Kibaki era.
Absolutely.
In that
His
whole
father
era.
was one of the foremost political scientists
Yeah.
Yeah.
in this country.
Minority.
Jimmy Kibaki, we are electing him as senator
Yes.
for Nyeri.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Kibaki told us the other day that we are with Raila Odinga.
Raila
Yes.
Odinga. That's right.
Absolutely.
That's what he told us.
Yes.
So basically, that's an endorsement from Kibaki.
Absolutely.
Kibaki has endorsed
Absolutely.
Raila Odinga,
Yes.
partly because of the history
Yes.
they've had, but also more so because when you talk about regime change,
Yes.
when Moi took over from Kenyatta,
Yes.
there's a total regime change.
Absolutely.
When Kibaki took over
From
Moi, total regime change.
Change.
But when Uhuru Kenyatta took over from Kibaki,
Yes.
Yes.
no regime change.
Yes.
What we had there was basically a
Yes.
form of continuity.
Yes. Absolutely.
Now, when Raila will take over from Uhuru Kenyatta, it will be a combination of continuity of the independence vision
Yes.
articulated
Yes.
in session paper number 10 of 1965, revived when Raila Odinga and Mwai Kibaki were in government as Vision 2030.
30.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a continuation of that particular dream. And do recall, actually, you're the one who was telling us that in 1965,
Yes.
the government of South Korea,
Yes. Absolutely. Actually,
Which is
1963.
63,
Yes.
1963,
Yes.
which is currently one of the foremost economies in the
Yes.
world.
Yes. 11th largest economy.
Yes.
In the world,
In the world.
they are the producers of a lot of the things that we have.
Samsung, LG.
LG, including Kia,
Yes.
the car.
Yeah.
They wanted to execute a particular project, and the World Bank told them, we can't give you the money. Where did they go to?
Jomo Kenyatta.
They went to
They came here.
Came here to Kenya.
Kenya.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we gave them a loan.
Give us a loan.
We gave them a loan of, was it $16,000?
It's about, yeah.
Which,
About-
which they paid only.
Yes.
only
They paid it in installments. And then they finished paying in 1966.
1966.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point there is that the independence dream has a custodian.
As a custodian.
And the dream, if we had followed it, if we did not have the regime break for 24 years under Arap Moi,
Yeah.
we will be very far.
Absolutely.
Maybe at the same level as South Korea.
Absolutely. We
So-
slept for 24 years.
For 24 years,
Yeah.
we were in a comatose.
Can you imagine? Moi actually added 24 years. He only added $8 billion, 800 billion shillings to this economy.
To the economy.
Yeah. 24 years. Uhuru has added 9 trillion in 10 years.
The challenge then is, if Uhuru has taken us from 4.5 trillion
Yes.
to 13 trillion
Yes.
when he's leaving,
Yes.
Raila
Yes.
has to take us.
To 22 trillion
22
bare
trillion.
minimum.
The bar is high.
Yes.
Is he able to do it? I think he can do
You can
that.
do it, yeah.
So is he a change or continuity candidate?
Continue both.
He
It's
is
a hybrid.
It is a hybrid.
Yeah.
And the reason why he's a change candidate is a regime is defined in political science as a pattern of relationships. Yeah, that facilitate the allocation of power and resources. That's a regime.
Yes.
Pattern of relationships.
Relationships.
Arap Moi broke the patterns of relationships that Jomo had built.
Absolutely.
KIBAKI broke the patterns of relationships
That
Moi
we had built. Uhuru did not break those patterns of relationships.
yes.
He grew them.
He multiplied.
He multiplied those patterns of relationships. If Ruto comes in,
Yes.
the patterns of relationship are completely, yeah,
He'll desecrate them.
and hence those patterns of relationships, also known as regime,
Yeah.
will change. You'll have
course.
a change in regime.
Yeah.
But how will Raila deal with it? I think he will adjust
Yes.
those patterns of relationships.
Right.
He'll not dismantle them completely, but there are some he'll do away with,
Right.
and then he'll reconstitute
Yes.
them. But regarding the agenda, because patterns of relationships is a vehicle for carrying his agenda,
Yeah.
but regarding the basics,
Yeah.
that is the agenda down here.
Correct.
It will be a continuation of the independence vision.
Vision.
And that's the reason why, for me, I stand with KIBAKI,
Yes.
Mzee KIBAKI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think now that he's reported in heaven,
Yes.
Yes.
I'm sure he's given Jomo a
Yes.
brief,
Yes.
and Mzee Moi as well.
Yes.
And he's told them country is in a good place,
Absolutely.
but we are in danger.
Mm.
There's a corner we must take. We don't know how we will take it.
And therein, Prof, I must ask you a question. What is the worst that could happen if Raila is not elected?
That's the danger that Mzee KIBAKI is discussing right now in heaven with Jomo, and the danger he's saying. Yeah, he's telling them now,
Yeah.
if we created this guy called Arab Ruto,
Yeah.
if he takes over, one of the things, his first order of business will be to get William Ruto,
Yes.
to get Raila Odinga arrested
Whoa.
and charged with treason for swearing himself in. Remember that treason does not have
Yes.
a limit.
A limit.
Yes.
That's right.
No limit of
So
statutes
no statutes
statutes
of
of
limitations.
limitations.
And the people will say the country will burn.
Yeah.
Does Ruto look like a man who will be shaken if country burns?
No.
They say continue burning if you so wish.
Yeah. He's
But this man, he has to face the law.
Yeah.
That's one of the things you do. The second thing you do
Yeah.
is rearrange the patterns of relationships.
Right.
And I don't know where that will take us in terms of going back to the 24 years
Yeah.
of Moi.
Of Moi.
An election of Ruto is Moism without Moi.
Mm.
You see that in the past.
Mm.
So Raila is the only option. And that's a conversation, that's the report that Mzee KIBAKI took to heaven,
Yes.
to Jomo.
And also the only message that he left us with, Raila is the only option. Raila is the only. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it is our hope that we have exposed the owners of the Ignorance Project. It is our hope also that we have damaged some ignorance today. Things are not as bad as they seem, or are they?